Okay, so the main purpose of, say, we're going to look at pivot tables. And I didn't even know that I was live. So I'm going to look at pivot tables and how we utilize it. I want to say that one of the main tables is to help you write your data as much as you can. It's very good for data analysis and for you able to see a pattern. To do a pivot table in Excel, the first thing is into, and let me take some water. You convert it into what we call a table, because we are talking about pivot tables. And at the moment, this data is structured in Excel form, basically comma separated values. So the data will have to be in the table form before pivot table can be able to make sense from it. But before then, as a good practice, it's always important to understand your data. Here we are looking at supervisors, outlet items, all the way to date, and then the taxes that we have. First of all, it's a sales report. So I am going to name the sheet as sales report. Click here, come and see sales reports. I like camel cases. And the second thing is you need to check to know whether all the what you have here are they numbers or they are not. Sometimes they could just be numbers as you are looking at them. But in terms of understanding or in terms of like programming or data analysis tools, it might be seen it as a text. So the first check you need to do is to, okay, let me centralize them. Maybe, okay. So the first check you have to do is to check whether they up to this place are they numbers. Okay, so I'm going to come here and say equal to, and I'm going to ask the question is number. Click, and then tap enter. So yes, it's true, it's a number. Check the next number, is also a number. Date. Okay, so if I move to the next one, so the first ones are actually numbers. And then if I run down a little bit, you see that they are all numbers. And then the last one is not a number, it's a date. That's this one. So that's one of the conditions that has been met so that we can know that we are working with numbers. Other than that, we can go ahead and then we are going to find ourselves wanting somewhere. The next thing is to convert the whole thing into a table. And to do that, click somewhere, any of the cells that contains any value, any of the cells within the data. Press your Control key down and then T. And then you see that Excel automatically identifies the table and to click, so you can click OK. So it transforms it from the file it was into a table. And now that it is a table, it becomes easy for us to insert our pivot table. So you click anywhere within the table and then go to Insert tab. From there, you can see pivot file on the ribbon. So you click on that. You select a table range, and which means, is it this table that has been selected? That's table 2. Yes. That's so don't change this advice. Then do you want it in the new worksheet? Yeah. It's always appropriate to do in a new worksheet. So you just click OK. And then this interface. So you are going to see on the tab on what is it, the pivot table analyze tab, which is activated. Once it is activated, the entire ribbon that has to pivot table active. Once that will have nothing to do with pivot table will be hibernated. And see some of them have been grayed out, others are quite active. Now, the pivot table 2, you can see the name which is here. And then that's the pivot table name is pivot table 2 that we're going to be working on. So we have active field, and then we have insert slicer. We shall be looking at them, refresh, change data source in the case we want to do so. I'm not sure in this relationship. We're not doing the relationship in this pivot table chart. If we want to insert a chart and then in that order. The other interface that is worthy of note is this section and the most important. So first of all, what we can do here, we have our field. So it is called the pivot table field. The fields here are actually the data, the column headers. So each column is called a field. And so if I look at supervisors, it's a field, outlet field, item field, just like we had in the data. Now, what we can do, in some instances, you can actually move around this, but I am unable to move it. What is it? So it's fine where it is. Now you can see some settings here. Click on this drop down arrow, and then you can change the appearance here. If you want it to be this way, all the fields will appear on the left, and then the rest of the data organization columns will also appear on the other side. If you don't want it that way, you can take it back to the default settings, which is this. And so those are the basic things. The search bar here allows you to search for field. That is in a case you are working with a large data set that has over 50 or 100 field. So you can just, so when you start typing the field name, let's say I want to type the field name, let's say date. So when I start, you see that the date field will become active then in that order. Or any other thing that starts with DA, everything will become, and then you can quickly select the one you want. That's it. You can always use the scroll bar to scroll up to. So in a case you have additional table, in this case, we're working with only one table, but there is an instance we're going to be working with pivot tables that will have like 2 or 3 or 4 different tables. And then we'll see how to be able to handle that subsequently. So basically, this is the interface of pivot tables. And if sometimes when you click on the sheet like this, that particular, the pivot table field interface, which will disappear. So what you can do to bring it back, you come to the left-hand side, so you can see the pivot table 2, and that small chat box wizard is still there. Just click inside it, and then the pivot table field wizard will also appear again, or the interface will appear again. Now, when it appears, the most important thing is now to allow us to be able to group our data, reorganize our data, to be able to get the information that we want to extract. And so how do we do that? Quickly, let us assume that we want to know how many mobile phones has each supervisor sold. Each supervisor sold so far. So, or how many mobile phones has each supervisor, and then the unit that he's supervising, his supervisory unit has sold in total. So I can simply pick the supervisor rules, then pick the quantity and put it in the value. So let's do it, and you see, I'm going to drag it and then put it in the rules, and you see that, oh, sorry, I drag the supervisor's age, not the supervisor's, what is the supervisors themselves. The supervisor is here. So in that case, what do you do? Simply just come to where I put the field, that particular age supervisor field, click on it, hold it, and just throw it away. It will disappear. Now, come back and then pick the supervisor itself and come and put it inside. And then you notice that automatically, you can see on the left-hand side in column A, you can see all the supervisors have, have been displayed in the form of rows. Then we want to look at the quantity that each supervisor has sold in their outlet or under supervisory unit. So that's the quantity value here, the quantity of phones that have been sold. So I'm simply going to drag that and put that in under the values. And you notice that automatically it gives you the overall total of how much each particular supervisor has sold under his supervisory unit. And you can see all of them are here. Now, that is one of the ways to be able to make sense from it. This is just, if you want, I mean, how many did he sell? How many Techno phones did he sell? And how many Samsung phones? And how many iPhones? How do we do that? Again, we have the items here, and the items is where we have that particular list. So you drag the items and come and put it just below the supervisors, and then that is all. So that way, the data is now organized into, under this particular supervisor, this is the total number of phones that he sold. But under Huawei, he sold about 5,000, then iPhone 7,000, itel 8,000, and then in that order. Then we can do that for the rest of the supervisors, and then we can see how the data is organized. So if you want, you can leave it like this, and then when you use this particular minus sign, you can actually collapse, and then you can also collapse the other one, and then the other. When you click on the plus, you expand it, and then you are good to go. If you don't want, you can also just throw it away, and then you are good to go. Now, which of the supervisors has performed better? And then in that order. We can actually come to this point here, and then actually convert these particular values into ranks. And we see which of the supervisors perform better. So I can simply click on that and come and say summarize the data, or sorry, sold data by rank. If you scroll down, you can see to largest, rank largest to smallest. You can choose. And so when we okay, you see that this particular supervisor here, what is it? Is the one that we can say maybe might have done better. This way is always difficult for me to interpret because of the 1, 2, 3 up to. In some cases, the 5 may mean the highest, and then the 1 may mean the lowest. In some cases, 1 could also mean the highest. So what I normally do is I'm going to right click on it and say show values as what is it? Or what is it? I can just show values by calculation, or I can show the values as no calculation or percentage of grand total. I think that one is better off. Yeah. And so if I put it this way, percentage of grand total, then you notice that I have like 24%. That person has sold 24% of the entire mobile phones of the entire company as compared to the rest. So you see that this way is much more better. So now, if you want to actually see the effect, I can actually highlight the whole thing, come to conditional formatting and say put some bars on it. So they allow us to see who, and then in that order. But this way is difficult to see, so we can actually rearrange it. So we click on any of them and then come and say sort. So we are going to sort largest to smallest. So and that way the data is resorted, as you can see. But maybe if the numbers are interfering with the bars, we can actually remove this by highlighting the whole thing here. Then go to conditional formatting. Then you come and click on this and say edit rules. Come and say show bars only and click OK. And then click OK again. So the numbers will disappear and leave only the bars. So now we can see maybe James as a supervisor is doing well, followed by Yabua and all the way to Mohammed. This is simulated data, and it doesn't represent anything. And then we have our grand total here. So these are some of the ways that we can actually, and if somebody also want to let us to have the numbers being displayed, we can always display the numbers alongside, and then we can have the percentage. Another technique is to simply drag the quantity and come and put it in the values column in the second one. So you notice that here we have this is the bar, And then this is also the bar, this is the quantity, this is the bar, and then this is the quantity. And this is the the supervisor order. So this is here for us to be able to make manipulation at all that we want. So basically, this is actually is a wish. You can try that with the other items, wish in that order. I'm going to remove the first one so that the bar will disappear and leave only this. But what about if we want to look at each of the managers and their performance in each location? Whether in Tamale, in Bolga, maybe some supervisor maybe are not doing well in other places. So how do we do that? So I can actually look at the outlet and come and put that one under columns. Look at each supervisor and then how they perform in each particular location. So this particular supervisor, for instance, look at this particular location of Kumasi and then the Grand Total. And so we can look at the performance under each of them, just like the way it has been organized. And then under outlet. And now let's look at the supervisor performance in each outlet under each mobile item. You see, item. So in that case, I'll drag the items and then come and put it under the supervisor. And so it's in a much more better way. So let me expand all of them, expand this as well, uh, expand this as well. And so in that case, under a particular supervisor, look at how he's performing in total, what is it, in total across all the locations. But when we come to Huawei, this is how he performs in Berkum. In Bolga, he sold nothing. Then in who we have, and then in order. So we can just look at the what is it, each of the supervisors and how they are performing in each of the locations. In some locations, some of them have sold nothing. As you can see some empty spaces that are all over. So there is, let's move uh, this out, and then let us bring something, each of supervisors, and then let's look at something. So when we come to the rows, and then we have the columns. Okay, I want to look at the quantities here. Okay, I'm leaving the quantities and I'm taking the columns two out. And so let's come and then right click on this. And then we say we have more options. And then we want to look at, I want to group the data. I think maybe if I were to pivot table analyze, there is some option here. And then let me see if that option allow me to be able to group the ages and then see if when a inform. Okay, I wanted to see where I'll be able to group the data. I'm not able to get that particular portion as quickly as possible, but I wanted to group the age, the ages, and then see if some of the age groups are actually doing well, and then in that order. And well, maybe I'm not able to get that particular function as quickly as possible, but that's what I wanted to do. So I'm going to take that out, but I will check it later on. So let us also look at, I think we've looked at locations, we've looked at the different items, we look at the different, how to rank them, how to look at their performance. But now let's bring the supervisors back again to the rows columns. And then let's here is the quantity that has been sold. We can also look at the total costs. We can look at the total cost. And so I can bring the, we don't have total cost. We can also look at, we don't also have profit. So what do? We can calculate them and add them as values, and then we're good to go. So sorry, and add them as field. So have total revenue and total, it will be difficult for us to be able to, you know, make any other sense. So possibly this particular supervisor might have sold plenty phones, but it's possible that in terms of revenue, he has not generated as much revenue as possible. So let's calculate total revenue, whether the total revenue will correspond to the number of items that have been sold. And then in that order, let's also calculate profit and then look at it across board. And then let's see how that's going to work. So first thing, to be able to do that, click here, click pivot calculated field. The first calculated field is total. So we have total revenue. I like the camel case style of. Oh, let's go to delete this zero. Revenue will be equal to the quantity. I'm going to click on the quantity and under the field. Then I'll bring my asterisk, which is the same as multiplication sign, multiply by the unit price. I'll insert my unit price. And then, so I can click OK. And then you can see our total revenue. Now, this is our total revenue. Okay, now let's look at our total cost. And then again, our total cost, we can come back again and then calculated field. So that will be, give it total costs. That's our total cost. And then we're going to come to this, say, total cost will be the items, the quantities, multiplied cost. And then my unit cost is also over there. And then I can simply click. And what is left? My profit. And then the profit, again, I will simply come to this point and then say calculated field, and then that will be my gross profit. I think so. Let me put it that way because there's tax. So I'm going to say my gross profit, and that's my gross profit. The gross profit is going to be the total revenue. So that is going to be total revenue. So let me check within field here. So I have my total revenue here, insert it, minus my total costs. And then the total cost is also here, insert it, and then click OK. And then that is going to give us my total profit, gross profit is also here. Now, we can actually look at the quantities which have been sold. We can look at the total revenue, the total costs, and then the total, what is it, profit. Now, to be able to examine this, highlight all of them like this. Then let's go like this, and then come and then let's say, let's look for the data bars. See whether all of this correspond to whatever that we wanted to do. Or we could also use color scale, and then we can also look at it in that particular manner. But I think the easiest way is to put all of them into ranks. You see, to highlight each of them and then convert them into ranks using the same format. And so we can know, or we can convert them into percentages. So I'm going to come to the first one here and say, I want to summarize, or I want to show it as percentage of grand total. So it gives me 2%. I'm going to do this point too and say, show it as percentage of grand total. That's 5%. And then come here again and say, I want to the values as percentage of grand total. And then of course, the last one, we are going to look at it as also percentage of grand total. So now let's look at something. And James, he sold more, 24% of the mobile phones. But when it comes to revenue, he 5.6% of the revenue. But someone has generated more revenue, even though the person sold just 22% of the mobile phones. As you can see, 5.11. Okay, I think it's already lower. But that the person is coming at the second position, and then in that order. Then we can the other, what is it, parameters which are there, and then we'll be able to see. So now let me pick one of them as our reference and say that we want from largest to smallest, and then we have sorted all the data. So in that case, now let's look at all of them and see. So you notice that, okay, this person sold more phones, uh, also made about 5.67 revenue, made about 5.65 of total cost. The more revenue, the more cost. And then a profit of 5.94% of the total profit that he has made, followed by that person, and then in that order. So here we've been able to actually, bring the data into to a form, but we can also do this and then bring a data back to it so that we all can see, so that there's no ambiguity in who has performed better and then who hasn't performed better, and then in that order. So we can look at it, and then maybe this color is just way better for me, and then I can choose that one. And like I said, we can come and say here, click on the rules, and then click list. So now we can actually look at each manager and how they perform in terms of the revenue mobilization item, and then the cost, the rating, gross profit that they are making, and then in that order. So this is pivot if you actually do a whole lot of analysis. I want a trick to pivot tables basically on how to be able to use most of these things. The pivot table analyze. Now let me remove most of this field, and then let's see if we can look at other aspects. We can look at other items or other aspects as we should wish. So let's see if the values that we have. Okay, let me put the total, the gross profits here, and then let's look at something. So it's still showing this, so we can actually say we wanted to show the ranks instead of okay. So and I wanted to I've removed all the calculations, and I want to take it back to and edit. Okay, I think up to this point, it's not bad. It's not bad at all. So we have percentage of parental row control. Use the right mouse button key a lot, and then you'll be good to go. I actually want to take out the and then here we this is what the details, how. So now look at details for one of the supervisors. So this is the outlets, this is the phones that he has sold, and then the age. Well, then we're going to have those kind of things. But I think not exactly how I wanted to look at it. I wanted, if you want to look at the details of each of the supervisors, I can simply click here. Oh, this is an James. So you see all the details and the James will be given. This type particular supervisor, go again. If it tells about Yabua, you simply come and look at his details. You can see this is the summary of only, and then you are good to go. You look at Yenu, you simply come to this bar and click on the details, and then you can have all the I was talking about. So they will all appear as individual reports, and then you are good to go. Now, let's see something. I'm going to see whether if I can drag the ages and come and put them here. I think I put them in the wrong place. Yes, the date. So far, all that I have done, I have not actually paid attention to dates. And so I'm going to drag the dates and come and put it around here. And the date allows us to be able to summarize our data in a particular format. Now, when we look at the date, for instance, we are looking at it yearly, year by year, as you can see it around here. Now, when we come to this side, we can actually click, on each of the dates here, and then expand it into first quarter, second quarter, and then in that order. We can look at it quarterly. So I'm going to come here and then say that we want to the field settings, and then in that case we want to look at quarterly. We want to look at quarterly, or I clicked on a different. So let's look at the date. And what is it? I am under a little bit of pressure here. So much interference. So I have quarter. I wanted to look at the quarterly report, and then we. So if you click on any of them, the plus sign. So under 2022, you can see first quarter, how each of the managers perform. Then you can also come and look at 2023. Then you can look at 2024. I can look at 2025, and of course 2026. That's for each of the managers. Now, when you come to 2022, you can see this is the overall gross profit. But first quarter, this was the profit that this particular manager made. Then second quarter, third quarter, and then the final quarter. 2023, first quarter. So we can do comparison here. 2022, the quarterly report, and then how it performed. If you also come under the quarterly report, you can also have, let's say, monthly. So when you click on the plus sign, you can see January person performed. When you come to the second quarter, April, May, June, and how the person performed, then you can look at the third quarter, and each of them will have them then in that order. You can actually look at your data into a very, very much detailed format when you're using pivot tables. So when you put the supervisor and you put data, it allows you to be able to see the summary of your data in a much, much, much more detailed manner, and you are good to go. So this is the gross profit section that we can actually look at. If we are looking at revenue, we can actually bring revenue, and you see breakdown will also be the same for the quarterly and then on and then all of that. So you can come and collapse everything in quarterly. If you so wish, you can collapse them into okay, another quarter is here, and then in that order. So you can look at your data quarterly basis, page manager, and then in that order. Maybe date we could have also added outlets. Outlet. So for instance, if I outlet and then bring it to, the outlet, and then I put it under the column section, the outlet under the column section. So I know some people will say this become too much, but we can now look at data in a much more detailed manner. And each year, each supervisor, then first quarter, we can see how each perform in Hope, and then perform in Kumasi, Tamale, and then in that order. Then we can look at it quarterly basis, yearly basis, then in that order, in all the outlets. And then we are good to go all the way up to this particular point. So you can see the grand totals and everything here, and the ranking that are there. So pivot table is very, very handy if you know how to be able to use it properly. Now, the very last thing I want to do is to simply, okay, I'm going to throw them out. And then let's also come to the very, and then let's see. So the next thing I will do will be to show you how to be able to insert pivot table chart, and then how we'll be able to use it. Other thing I didn't show you was to simply come here and then put the filters. So the filters were here. So I can simply say, okay, I want to look at only Bekum. I click OK. Then I'll look at each of the managers' performance under Bekum alone. So, and then I can simply come and select here. Okay, I want to look at who. And so this is the performance of all the managers under who, gross profit, gross revenue, and then in terms of also the total gross profit, which is also here. And so that's the revenue mobilized, the profit made, then in that order. So the filters also allow you to be able to look at individual areas depending on what you want to filter. For instance, I could filter based on the location. Here, that's the location I'm actually filtering for now. What is it? I could have also taken that out and then just filter based on. So I'm taking that out, and let me say filter based on items. And the items, I can see how much each manager performed. Okay, in terms of Huawei sales, how much did he make? So we can look at Huawei. This is the profit, the gross profit, and this is the revenue that was mobilized under the sales of phones, and then in that order. So much that can be done, but now there's so much noise in my area here, so I have to rush and then we're finished. So try your hands, move around, and if you have any question, you can put it in the comment section and I'll address it. Thank you. I'll see you in another video. Bye bye.